Hello. Welcome to Almost 80. I'm Bennye, your host. Now that you have rung the bell, come on in, have a seat, and make yourself at home.
Well, hello, Ma.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Can't really complain. It's been a minute,
Yeah, it has been. I don't know. Yeah, quite a minute, right?
quite a while. I think we may have gone the entire summer
I think
without recording.
I think so.
And here we are, second day into fall.
Yeah, so it's time, I guess.
It's time, past time,
Yeah,
past
'cause
time.
there's a lot to cover even after all this. Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're early in our journey.
Oh yeah, this is
Yeah, definitely early. Well, I'm glad we had a chance to sit down and talk again. The first episode, let's see, we talked about cotton. You talked about your experience picking cotton as a child and what that was like growing up in East Texas. And then the second time, the second episode, what did we talk about?
we talked about where DeKalb is.
Where DeKalb is.
Yeah, where DeKalb is, because a lot of people don't know where it is. They said, "Where is that?"
They said, where is DeKalb? And we met somebody last week, Ma, who knew where it was. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, did you?
No, we did. You remember we met with, I don't want to call his name, but remember we met with somebody from
Oh,
your
sure
church
did. Sure
who
did.
knew it as soon as we said, I couldn't believe it.
Sure did. Knew
I've
it.
never met another person outside of the state of
Right.
Texas who
Knew
knew where
exactly
DeKalb
where it
was.
was. Knew exactly where it was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here we are today, and today we are going to kind of turn a little bit inward and talk about your own family.
Yeah.
Okay, what you want us to know about your family?
Well, I just want you to know the makeup of my family,
Mm-hmm.
the family that I was born into.
Yeah,
Uh, it's kind of what I would like to do. I had a dad and I had a mama. That's
yeah.
first of all. I think
That's the first part.
that starts it,
You had
right?
two parents, a mom and a dad.
Mama and daddy, yeah.
hmm
Yeah. And
So why don't we
dad,
start with your dad?
okay. Daddy, he was a tall man.
hmm
He was big personality man.
hmm hmm
Uh, he was born back in what, 1913 or something like that.
hmm
He went to the third grade as far as his education was concerned. And I'm not quite sure. I think he could read a little bit and write a little
hmm
bit, but
hmm
whenever he wanted something done, he always asked me to do it for him. He wrote our representative, I guess, Wright Patman. He
Huh, and
represented
you
our
remember the
district.
name.
Yeah, he represented our district, and Daddy wanted to say something. I don't even remember what it was, but I took a brown paper bag
Huh,
and I wrote what Dad had asked me to write on there, and we mailed it and got a response.
which is impressive.
Impressive. Yeah, he responded.
Yes.
Yeah.
His name
So
was Pat Reitman.
Wright Patman.
Wright Patman.
Wright
Okay.
Patman.
That
Yeah.
is
I
so
think he was from the
interesting.
Texarkana area somewhere.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm Now he was your representative, but nobody in your community could actually vote for him. Or
Well,
could you vote? You tell us about this.
I think we could. The voting part. Let's see, how did we do? We could go uptown, and sometimes what they would do, I remember my grandmother voting for Nixon. And what happened was some white folk came down and picked her up. I think they gave her, I don't know, just some pennies to
Hmm.
vote for Nixon. Took her uptown and she voted. I don't really remember my mama and daddy voting, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, ever.
But I do
hmm
remember my grandmother going up voting, and I rode with them.
Huh.
And it was a little place they called it City Hall, but it was just a little
A
shack, like a
room.
little room. Yeah, a little room. And
Yes.
who knows where the vote went or how it went or
hmm
if she put an X. I don't know
hmm
I don't know how it worked.
And
Yeah.
she was black, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
she was black.
She was black. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you had to, and what was your dad's name? You haven't given us his name.
Yeah. My dad's name was Emmitt.
Emmitt. And
Uh,
do you know how he came about that name?
I have no idea.
Okay.
No
Okay.
idea.
I think it's an English name. I just wonder how he, ended up with that.
Yeah, I really don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was your dad. He was tall. He had a large stature, both physically and with personality, sounds like.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, I never had a chance to meet him because he died when I was a year old.
Yeah, you
But
were a year old and you got
yeah.
my mom through through that grieving process.
Huh.
She said that, in our house from the front room to the back room, it was sloping.
Mm-hmm.
The house was
The
sloping.
wood, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you had just learned how to walk. And when
Yeah.
I put that little dress on you, it was like a little sundress and
And
some
it
little,
had the little bottoms with the ruffles on it.
yeah, bottoms with the ruffles. And I think you had some sandals on. And honey,
Oh,
nobody could tell you anything. You walked that thing up and down.
oh
And mama just
yes.
got a kick out of it and got her through that part.
Uh,
Yeah.
I'm really happy I was able to bring her some joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Daddy was a hardworking man. He raised fields of corn and cucumbers and I don't know, all kinds of stuff out there. And
Mm-hmm.
then he also had a big garden because Mama kind of took care of the garden, but he planted it and everything.
Yeah.
So he had everything in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he also worked at the ammunition plant
Mm-hmm. Where
down
was
in
that? Yeah.
it was between DeKalb and Texarkana. So it was in, I don't know, near Hooks or someplace
Mm-hmm.
down there. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
right outside of New Boston.
Okay.
So he worked there. And while he was working there, he had they were traveling back and forth on the back of a truck.
Mm-hmm.
And it
He
was,
and some other coworkers, like his coworkers.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And they had a kerosene heater back there. And
Oh,
the man was driving and hit a bump or something, and it started a
yeah.
fire in the back of the truck.
Yeah.
And they tried to get his attention, and
And they
they
couldn't.
couldn't. And they had severe burns from this.
And
You
was
know,
he the only one that was burned or the
no,
other?
there were others who were burned as well.
Did any of them pass away as a result?
It's trying to think. I don't
Mm,
think anyone passed away. They were just severely burned, and Dad had spent 2 or 3 months in the hospital.
yeah.
They had to graft skin from one place to the other.
Hmm.
And he was really disabled kind of after that.
Which is very impressive because we're talking probably, you remember this? Like you remember his being
I
burned?
remember it. I was little, but I
Okay.
remember it. Yeah.
So this was after 1945, right? When you
Yes.
were born.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so the hospitals, I guess, in Northeast Texas were allowing Black people to be admitted,
Yeah. They
I
had
guess.
colored wards.
Colored wards. That
Uh-huh.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay. That's really too bad. I'm sorry to hear that happened to him. He's probably in a lot of pain.
Oh yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of pain.
And I remember when he came home, Mama would have kind of changed the dressing and stuff
Yeah.
on him and all that. Yeah.
And he wasn't really able to work again.
Not really,
Yeah.
So he kind of farmed and that
Yeah.
was about it. And we were on welfare. We went on welfare.
Did they had welfare?
They had welfare at some
Hmm.
point because our check, it was 5 kids and 2 adults. Our check was $65 a month. That was our welfare check.
And this happened after he became disabled, basically.
Yes, yes, yes.
Wow.
But I
Okay.
mean, but that got us through because we raised everything that we ate.
Right.
And this would get us like things that you had to buy, like
Mm.
flour and meal and
Mm-hmm.
lard
Mm-hmm.
and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
You were living off the land.
Living off the land, yeah.
And the house had been built by him. Who built the house?
Yeah, he built it and his Uncle Jetty.
Oh, okay. Okay. So you didn't have to worry about any of that. Like you had your housing, your food, you had a well that had been
We had a
dug.
well, yeah, that
Yeah.
we got our water from. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So you really didn't need that much.
Right.
I mean, that's a blessing
Yeah.
too. Okay. So that was your dad. Big personality, had some medical misfortune, really.
Right. Yeah.
But it sounds like you told me in the past that Granny was not his first wife.
She was not his first wife. He was married before to a lady named Miss Lula May, I think was her name.
Miss Lula May.
Yeah. And I didn't really know that he had a first wife until I was a teenager probably. I
Yeah.
didn't realize he had been married before or
Yeah.
that she had been married before for that matter.
Right. Well, we'll get to her in a minute.
Yeah, we'll get to her. Okay. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, he was married and he had a son named after him, Emmitt, looked just like him, talked just like him, acted just like him. Really a nice guy. And I didn't meet him until I was like in high school. And he came with his girlfriend and they spent the night. And I just loved them both. They were really nice.
Oh, that is really sweet to hear. He was really sweet. I think the last time I saw Uncle Son, which is what we called him, your older brother, Was that my medical school graduation? He drove
Right,
up, remember? I
right.
think that was the last time I saw him.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
really such a very nice man.
Uh-huh.
Just very sweet.
Right. And he
Yeah.
took, and after Daddy died, he took care of Mama. He came down to see about her all the
Mhm.
time, made sure she had wood, she had everything that she
Mhm.
really nice. Yes.
So while I say he was sweet and very nice, all that's true, but he didn't really suffer fools well.
Right.
Do you think he had a very low tolerance to suffering fools?
Yeah. Yeah. He didn't
You
put up
know,
with too much
that's what I'm
mess.
saying. He didn't put up with too much. And maybe he got that from your both of y'all's dad, you
Right.
know? I
Right.
don't know, didn't know him, but you knew him. Was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
pretty much how your dad
I
was?
would say so. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Didn't
Yeah.
put up with too
Yeah.
much stuff.
Didn't put up with
Right.
too much. Okay, so you had this brother. You met this brother when you were almost, high school or middle school or something.
Right. Right.
Yep.
And
And
and Daddy
is
also
that
had another girl. He had a girl as well before he
okay?
met Mama.
Okay. What
Her
was her
na-
name?
her name was Hazel.
So he was, he got around a little bit.
Yeah, he was out there. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. He was
He
out
was out
there.
there. Yeah.
Okay. And then he met your mom. And tell us about Granny. So now we've talked about your dad. Tell us about your mom.
My mom's first husband
Wait,
was,
you haven't told us anything about him.
oh, I haven't said anything about it.
Uh-uh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. My mama, it's even hard to explain who she is. She was
I
such a
know.
beautiful, beautiful person.
She really was.
She had such a lovely personality. She had such a love for people. She always had an open home.
Hmm.
She cooked a lot of stuff like we talked about. And people always came to see us and they sat on the porch and they talked and they laughed and just had a good time, you
She
know.
created like a home. She
She
created a home.
created she created a home.
Yeah. And people felt comfortable coming to
Yes,
it.
yes. And
Yeah.
she was a religious woman.
Yeah.
Went to church, every Sunday just
Hmm.
about. And when she
Hmm.
didn't go, we had to go. She made sure that we went.
Okay. So she made
Yeah,
sure you all went.
right, right.
Okay. And so she went to, if I remember correctly, she went to the eighth grade.
She went to the eighth grade. She
And so
did.
she was able to read and write. If
Oh yeah, she was
I
able to
remember that
read
she
and
used to
write.
read and write. Yeah.
She was able to read and write well.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
was
She
quite
sure
smart,
was.
as a matter of fact.
Quite smart.
Uh-huh.
Quite
Quite
smart.
smart.
One of the smartest people I've met.
Yeah, she's quite smart.
Yes. And
Hmm.
full of common sense. She was smart
Oh yeah,
and was wise. Both.
wise.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
wise.
And she
Yeah.
encouraged everybody. And she would tell me, sometimes I would call her complaining, and she would say, if there's something you can do about it, do it. If not, turn it over to the Lord. She would say,
Yes.
her message was turn it over. You
Yes.
can't do
Turn it
anything
over.
about it, turn it over. In other words,
Yeah.
don't keep it within.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't chew on this.
Don't chew
You
on it.
have to let it go.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Okay, so tell us about Granny. She was born in 1916.
Yeah, she was
She
born in
was
1916.
smart, finished eighth grade, and rode horses. Am I right?
She did. She rode
She did.
horses.
Did she ride them competitively?
No, no,
Okay,
just for fun.
for fun. Hmm.
Yeah, her and Aunt Willie and Aunt Ethel,
Hmm.
they rode horses
Yeah.
like real fast, like
Yeah, like raced.
yeah, like race.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I get it. I get it.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome. And so
Yeah,
she got married when she was young,
she got married when she was 16 years old.
which I guess was about the average at the time, right?
I guess so.
I
I
don't
guess
know.
so. Yeah, she was 16
Yeah.
and she married a man named Eugene,
Hmm.
before she met Daddy. And the
Hmm.
story is, and they had three kids.
Yep.
And the story is, at least Uncle SL said, who was Eugene's brother,
Hmm.
he told me that Eugene worked out of town at the sawmill or at somewhere.
And I see where
While
this is
he was
going.
working, while he was working, Daddy was slipping around and kind of stole her heart and stole her from him. That's what Uncle SL said.
So, I guess we would have needed to ask Granny directly.
Right, right.
Like, what
How'd that
actually
happen?
happened? Did
Yeah,
you leave your first husband for my granddaddy? That's
right,
what I would have asked her. Sounds like maybe she did.
right.
There's a lot of stuff going on. People always think that all this stuff is new, dirt, people kind of moving from here to there and pillar to post. It's
Right.
as old as the sun,
Oh,
right?
it's
It's
old.
as old
Nothing
as
is
the
new.
sun.
Nothing is
Nothing
new
is
under the
new.
sun. Is that what they say?
Yep. So she left little poor Eugene
Yep, left him by
and
the
married your
roadside.
dad.
Yeah.
married your dad.
And they got
And
married, I think, in the front of her papa's house. And a man by the name of Reverend Bell, I think she said, was
mm,
there, and he like officiated. But they
uh-huh.
jumped the broom. That was how they knew they were married. They jumped the broom.
So they were jumping the broom not as a not as a, we do it now as a symbol.
Right,
Like it's an homage to our history, right? To our
right,
history as enslaved people, descendants of enslaved people. But she jumped the broom because you actually need to do that to be married.
right,
Yeah,
right,
it's like a function, like you
right.
needed to do that. I think
Yeah,
that is so cool.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, so she had a second marriage, second husband. He had a second wife.
Yes,
They were each other's second spouses.
right.
And then they went on to have how many kids?
They went on to have 13 children.
Prolific child.
13 children. And when I stopped to think about, when I really, wrote down all of my brothers and sisters and everything and when they were
Hmm.
born, and
Yes,
it was just astonishing. It was like
that is
unbelievable.
astonishing. So,
Yeah.
okay, so do you have a sense of when she started having kids and when she stopped having kids? Like, what was her journey? Because, honey, I have two and I can't imagine. Like, I just can't even.
She started having kids in 1934, okay?
Okay, okay. So she was
And
18. She was 18. She was
she
born
was
in
18.
1960. Mm-hmm.
And her last child was born in 1960.
Mm,
1960. And I just
that's
like to run.
26 years.
Yes, I would just like to run down these years
Yeah,
and
go
how.
ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, JV was born in 34. SED was born in 35. Charles was born in 37. Earl was born in 39. Eva in 40. Robert in 42. Clarence Ray in 43. Me, I was born in 45.
Yeah.
Ola Faye was born in 47. Jeannie was born in 49. George, Lil Nama, was born in 51. Carolyn in 53. Marilyn in 54. Alvin 55. Geraldine 58. And Geraldine 60. And she died with a crib death.
Mhm.
And then Carolyn, who was born in 53, was stillborn.
I can't even imagine.
It is unbelievable.
I can't imagine having that many children. It's just, first of all, they didn't really have I mean, there was no birth control, right? So, I
No,
mean,
no.
people just kept having babies.
Right, right,
And she was one of the women that just, and she was healthy enough to keep having babies. Like, I mean, it's also a reflection of their overall health status, right?
right.
Um, that's amazing. And it's amazing. How many kids were born before you? What number were you?
I was number, let's see, 7.
7.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so they had 13 children, so they were busy. And your mom, what did she do for work? We know what your dad did for work. What did your mom do for work?
My,
Besides being pregnant and having babies, because that was a whole full-time job.
that's a full-time job, but she worked in the fields. She chopped cotton. She
Mm-hmm.
picked cotton.
Mm-hmm.
She raised kids. She did domestic work in white folks' houses.
Mm-hmm.
She quilted.
Mm-hmm.
She, yeah, she worked at the canteen down in New Boston at the
Hmm.
ammunition plant for a
I
while.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
she did. Uh-huh.
Huh. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what she did.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay, so that's your family. That's your mom, that's your dad. Her name was Arnese.
Our niece, yes.
Mm-hmm. Arnese. People called her
Niece.
niece.
Uh-huh. And the grandkids and everybody in the family called her Granny.
Granny.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Granny.
Granny. She raised so many people, not just her own children.
Right,
She
right.
raised even more than just her own biological
Yeah.
children. She was really special. I'm so grateful that I had a chance to know her even until I was an adult. That I had
Yes.
all those years that I had a chance to really get to know her.
Yes.
I'm very blessed, you know,
And she knew you before you knew that she knew you because she came up when you were born.
to help take care of me,
They'll
to help
take,
take care of you,
they'll take
honestly.
care of me. Yeah.
Yes,
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 she
yes,
did.
yes. With a new baby, just like you did for me. You came to do the same when Miles was born.
That's true.
Yeah, I appreciated it. That first baby really is I was your second, but Miles was my first. And you just feel like there's no way that somebody's gonna leave this little creature with you and
Right.
expect you to know what to do
Know what to do.
and be able to survive it. It's really traumatic.
I know it.
All right. So you have brothers and sisters, and anything else about your family down in DeKalb? And everybody's basically from DeKalb. You all were living in DeKalb. And is there anything else about your family that you want us to know?
Well, I just kind of briefly want to go back and talk a little bit about Daddy's family. He is
Yeah.
from a large Moore family, but
Hmm.
I didn't really know how we were related, like growing up until much later in life.
Hmm.
And also, I did know his sister. He had a sister, and his mother and father didn't stay married. They were married, but they didn't stay married that long.
Okay.
And his mother died. His mother was raising them, him and his sister Laurel, and she died when he was 9. When she was 9, how was it? When he was 9 and she was 10. No,
Okay.
he was older. So she died when he was 10 and she was 9. And I don't know who raised them or who helped with them or anything, but
So
he
you really
always
actually don't know how he
right.
came up.
But
Okay.
I do remember him talking about having to work hard to try to help take care of her.
Even
So
though
I
he's only a year older himself, he was a
right,
child.
right, and still a child. Yeah,
Right. And so we don't know where his father was.
I have no idea.
And you never met his father.
Never met his father, but he thinks that it's
Wow.
someplace up in Oklahoma.
Oh, isn't that interesting? How does that even happen? You
Right,
know,
right,
I just don't understand it. Okay. So his father, I mean, your father had relatives in the community,
right.
but he did not really affiliate with them. Otherwise, you would have known them, right?
Right. Every now and then, I remember when I was small, he took me over there and said we were going over to see Uncle Ples now. But I
Hmm.
didn't really know the relationship. I
Hmm.
didn't know that Uncle Ples was his mother's brother,
Right. His actual uncle.
his actual uncle. Yeah, uncle.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And all of his kids were our close
Hmm.
cousins.
Exactly. First cousins.
First, yeah,
Second cousins, I guess.
second
It was
cousin.
those his cousins. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about your mom's family.
My mom's mother and dad, her daddy we called him Daddy Norman. His name was Norman.
Yeah.
And her mother was named Iola. We called her daughter.
Iowa. Uh-huh.
I don't know where that name came from, but
Yeah.
anyway, they didn't raise her. They had, she had 2 brothers
Hmm.
and they raised their sons, but they did not raise her because they said she was too dark. Her mother said she was too dark. And one day, Mama said that she was over there, I guess, visiting or whatever, and she told her to go home, little Blackie, go home, Blackie. That's what she said to my mother. So my mother, you know,
Yeah, let's just put a pin in that for a
yeah, just
minute.
put a pin
I
in that.
mean,
Have to take a breath on that.
I mean, we've known the long history that colorism has played in our community, so
Yeah,
many other communities too, but we're talking about ours, right?
right, right.
That it has plagued us for so long.
Yes,
And it just really hurts me to the core to think about somebody doing that to Granny,
yes,
her own mother to boot,
yes,
right?
yes, yes,
The fact that Granny was able to have that kind of rejection and know it, right? Not just be like abandoned, you don't know why you were abandoned, you just grew up with other people, you had no idea what the reason was. She knew that she was abandoned because of the color of her skin.
right.
I'm assuming. So you did
Yes.
Granny tell you how she knew that this is what happened?
Well, she knew because that's how her mother referred to her all the time. I think it
Yeah.
was not just that one time that she said, "Go
Yeah.
home, Blackie." She always referred to her as some dark or something,
Right.
some
Right. And go
name.
home is like not in this house.
Yeah, not in this house. Go to your grandparents' house because the grandparents raised her,
And so her mother, her father's parents or her mother's parents?
her father's parents
Her
raised her.
father's parents.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And tell me about this mother of hers. Her name was Iola, but did she consider herself to be a different color? What was her ancestry? Like, what was her story?
She was dark skinned herself, but her mother was half white.
Okay.
And when I think about it now, I think that probably what happened was that this is what was inflicted upon her as a dark child.
Mm.
And she carried it on, even though
So you
she was
think,
dark herself.
right, that's
That's what
awful.
I'm thinking.
That's awful.
Yes, that's awful.
Okay, so that happened to Granny. She was unfortunately born to a woman who was a terrible person.
Right.
and who decided to raise 2 out of 3 of her children, who, let's just be honest, her sons were not all that light skinned.
No, they
Okay.
weren't. They weren't.
Like, I remember them. I remember
Right.
her brothers. And they were kind of like color of like chestnut, maybe.
Yeah.
When you
Yeah.
say chestnut
And
brown.
Uncle RJ was even darker than Uncle Red, you know.
Yeah, they weren't light skinned.
They weren't light skinned, they were dark.
But they were kept in love by their mother, whereas she was not.
Uh-huh.
This is really, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that part of your mom's story. I think the honestly miraculous part of your mother is that she was able to do that and then be the person that she was, who was so loving, so caring, never turned people away. You know, a lot of people wouldn't suffer, you know, they might have suffered that and then just been very hostile toward people, you know, or kind of
Right.
nasty and would have felt justified, right? Even internally, that why do I need to extend myself? You know, people don't do that for me.
Right.
But that was not Granny. Granny extended herself to everyone.
And she took
And
care of her mother in her mother's older age. She took care of her
which
and
is
sent us down to take care of her.
like saintly. I mean,
we
this is
all,
like level of saintly, right?
yes,
Like,
yes,
I can't even imagine doing that.
yes. That's what they did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was Granny. And those were her people that she had to live with.
Right.
Okay. So have we covered the family?
Just about. So Papa, the person who raised her, we called him Papa,
Okay. So her parents, even though they were her grandparents, these are
even
the
though they
people
were
that
our
loved her.
grandparents. They
Yes.
lived across the road from us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
And when you say across the road, people get this idea that it's probably like a street now, where there's a house and then there's a little street and there's a house across the street. You're talking about maybe a half a mile away.
well, not quite. Well,
Yeah.
you think it's a half a mile? Maybe so. Yeah,
Oh,
maybe so.
at least a quarter of a mile.
Yeah, a quarter of a mile. I would say a quarter of
You
a
said
mile
more.
away.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, across the road. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know Big Mama. She was gone on before I knew her.
Oh, so you only knew her grandfather.
I only knew her grandfather, Papa.
Uh-huh.
And Papa, when I knew Papa, I don't remember exactly when he got married, but when he was 90 years old, he married a second wife, and her name was Miss Easter. We called her Miss Easter.
Can
And
you even imagine?
she was 40 years old. He was
Oh my,
90. He was 50 years older than she was.
that's crazy. Now, was he the one that was born in Louisiana as a slave?
Yes, he was.
So he was enslaved when he was born.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he was, I'm trying to think, did he say 12? I think when he was 12, he left home, left wherever he was,
Mm-hmm.
and came to DeKalb.
And we don't even know, was it when he was freed? Like, was that when he was freed?
I do
Or
not know, and I
and
do not know his family. He was one of 19 children, he said.
wow, but he knew
But
that.
we never knew them.
And he knew that he was one of 19,
Yes,
but he didn't know where they were.
right.
And what was his last name?
Fields.
Fields. And he was from Louisiana.
Yeah, I think it was Louisiana, huh?
There's
Yeah.
so much we don't know.
So much we don't know. So much, so much. But he was able to learn how to dig wells, and he did this for a living. And
Oh,
people would come and get him from miles away, and he would go and like stay at the house until the well was completed.
dug.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
dug.
And how old was he when he was still digging wells?
He was old.
80?
Yeah, in his 80s. I mean, he worked in his 90s. He was still plowing and raising corn and stuff with a mule. He was still plowing with a mule in his 90s. Okay.
And how old was he when he died?
He was 99.
Wow.
99.
And so do you know what year was that when he died?
Oh boy.
You have to wind back the clock. How old do you think you were? How old do you think you were?
I was probably 19, 18, 19, something like that, I'm thinking.
So you think this was like 63? 64?
Yeah, probably something like that. I don't remember exactly. I'd have to go back and check that out to see
Okay.
exactly.
So he may have been born literally at the end of slavery.
Yeah. And you know what he did? I have to tell this story, what he did to Miss Easter, his wife. She was a character. She bought her a car from somewhere. I don't know. I guess he bought it for her, but she couldn't really drive. She was in the ditch every other day, people would have to come and try to push her out of the ditch, okay? And one time I rode with her because she would go to Oklahoma sometimes. And at that time, there was no bridge or anything connecting Red River across
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
So you had to go on the ferry and you have to drive your
Oh,
car up on the
oh
ferry.
my gosh. I can't even
And I
imagine
would
what
be
you were saying.
so scared because she looked like we were just going to drive off into the river, you know?
Mm,
She was a mess. And then she would go out at night, and Papa didn't like that. So one night he told Mama, I overheard him, you know how I'm sitting around the corner listening.
listening.
He told Mama, he said she came in late and he said he put a knife to her throat. She thought he was asleep. And when she laid down, he put a knife to her throat. And he told her he would kill her if she did it again.
Okay. You know what? He was off. You know that's crazy. Oh my gosh. I guess he didn't want to be I guess how he saw that as being disrespected,
Yeah,
probably.
and used or whatever.
And used. Well, I mean, let's be honest, she probably was using.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's something. Okay.
Okay.
Tell us about Little Mama.
Little Mama was she was the daughter of the plantation owner, Bentley, the Bentley man,
The
Bentley
Bentley
Johnson,
Farm. Mm-hmm.
at the Bentley farm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she lived down there, in a little hut. She she used newspapers for her, wallpaper.
Wallpaper.
That was her
Mm-hmm.
wallpaper, yeah. And she looked white and she had
Yeah.
like long hair.
Yeah.
And she was full of herself. I mean, she thought she was God's gift, okay?
Uh-huh.
So she pranced around and I don't think she wasn't that nice of a person.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
didn't treat us that nicely. We would go down to see her and see how she was doing in her old age and everything. And as a matter of fact, she ended up staying with us in her latter years, and she died from at our house.
Now, who is she again? Whose
Now,
mother was she?
she is my mother's mother who didn't keep my mother's mother's mother. She was
Oh,
my
so
mother's
she's your
grandmother.
mother's grandmother.
Yes,
Got it.
yes.
Got it. So the mother, okay, so Granny's mother that basically gave away your mother, gave
Uh-huh,
her daughter away,
uh-huh,
was the child, the
uh-huh.
dark-skinned child of a very fair biracial woman.
Yes.
And so do you wonder whether or not she, little mama, mistreated her own daughter?
I think that probably happened.
So you
Yes.
think there's some generational trauma here potentially?
Uh-huh, uh-huh. But yeah, but
Did
little
you ever
mama,
see them interact? Did you ever see?
looking back on it and thinking back on it, yeah. I don't think she didn't treat her lovingly.
Mhm.
I don't think.
Did she treat anybody lovingly?
No, not that I can remember.
So she was just mean
Yeah, she was mean
and miserable, probably.
and miserable. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
It's too bad.
yeah,
Very interesting story. But honestly, it's an American story,
yeah. It is.
right? It's a
Yeah,
fully American story.
yeah. And that's kind of my family story.
Well, I appreciate you sharing with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to share with it because I think about it and I'm happy to share it because hopefully down the line some of our own family who didn't know us or know anything about the family who came before them will get some idea of who they were and how they were and
Mhm.
all of that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for another great episode of
Yeah.
almost 80. And
Yeah,
you are closer to 80 than you were before.
I am
So,
indeed. I am
yep.
indeed. Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we'll talk to you
Thank,
next time.
thank you so much.
No problem. Have a good
Okay.
one, Ma.
All right, I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you for stopping by. I'll see you next time.